and welcome back, friends. Welcome back to the non-traditional podcast.
Season finale.
It gets me every time.
Girl.
It's the season finale.
We did a whole season of a podcast.
In quarantine.
Ask about me. Okay.
Wow. If you had told me in March that we would be here in July saying, here is the season finale of the non-traditional podcast, I would not believe you. And that's a true statement.
Wow, you need to believe in yourself more.
Thanks, Mom.
I'm just saying, you're great. You should, dream big.
But I mean, okay, I'm sorry. But in March, we all thought it was over. We were like, okay, we're in New York.
You ain't lying.
I don't know if we're going to make it, New York.
Well, you know what? Here we are. I am not currently in New York. I am in my childhood bedroom that, my mom betrayed me a few years ago and painted it purple. And I'm just thinking, like, if you were going to change my bedroom from pink to purple, you should have just gone full adult and given me, like, eggshell. But, whatever. Choose your choices.
Hey, it's pretty. I like it. It's almost like, I mean, I don't know if I'm getting the exact tone through this little video we're doing, but it's kind of like a grayish purple. It could be adult. I get it.
Sure. You're on her side.
Always. Always.
Let me go get her.
Mama, I am always on your side.
Right.
But how has it been? Where are you?
North Carolina.
It's green there, isn't it?
You can stay mad. I went on a 4-mile hike through the Eno River State Park today. It was beautiful. Yeah, it's been great. I'm not going to lie.
So I'm going to log on.
You went to Maine or Vermont or wherever the hell. Come on.
Okay. Friends of the non-traditional podcast. We know where I went to. It was Rhode Island.
And once again, that's what I said.
Maine is not Rhode Island. But anyway.
I wish people could see you. I really wish they could see you.
Oh, but how has it been though? Seriously, how's it been?
Absolutely fantastic. Much needed break, and I can put my feet in grass, so God bless.
Grass, nature, outdoor space.
How have you been?
I've been good. This week has been hot. That's all I can say. You know how we just forget what summer is like in New York. So in the winter, we're all like, oh my God, I can't wait for beach weather, for summer weather. And then summer comes and you're just sweating.
Right.
Because we're not cute like the West Coast where it's like dry heat. Here it's like humidity. It is 75 degrees humidity in my apartment. In my apartment.
I'm not going to read you for filth right now, but that is your fault because you have some things going on with like being eco-friendly, and I'm not going to tell the people about you, but so we don't have to go there, but you're telling on yourself.
But can it just be dry heat? I miss dry heat. I want dry heat.
Your air conditioning on.
I know, but we're recording a podcast. I can't put the AC on.
Okay, cool.
So I want to remind everyone that this is the last episode of this season. We're going to take a week break after this episode airs, and then we're going to come back with kind of a, I'm calling it a newsletter episode. I don't know if I'll change that, but that's what I'm calling it for now. And it's going to be a roundup of all the guests we've talked to this season.
Love it. Can't wait.
But thank you guys for all of your kind words on the last episode with Evelyn. That was a really, really great episode. Every time I watch a video of hers now, I'm sort of like, oh, that's our friend.
Girl. Meanwhile, let me just say something about the last video she posted this week. I don't know who captions her videos, but it said Nigerian accent. Our friend Evelyn is from Kenya, so somebody go fix that.
Well, she was doing a Nigerian accent, to be fair.
Oh, was she?
That was a Nigerian that was straight up a Nigerian accent.
Okay, so the African diaspora is coming together to make us a consensus here that was not a Kenyan accent.
It was not.
Know better. I'm ashamed.
It was not a Kenyan accent. I don't think so. Like that was a straight up Nigerian accent. And I was like, oh, okay, I see it.
Got it. Well,
go
ahead.
I was going to say captions. You're reading captions.
She has captions on her Instagram post on the last video.
Oh, really? I didn't even see that. I just watched the video on YouTube.
Because you're loyal.
I subscribe and I like, okay?
You do subscribe. That was such a great episode. I'm so glad that we have her on. And that was honestly definitely a goal of mine to chat with her. And she was super dope.
Yeah, it's so funny how, a lot of things that have happened in non-traditional have been so fortuitous and just, wow, I did that. I've always wanted to talk to that person. And then I did. Like, it's been great.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, guys, for all your love and support. Welcome to the season finale.
Woo-hoo.
of non-traditional. And, Jenn, I'm going to throw this to you because you are all about this. And I just want to hear from you what you think. First, let's start with, what is Sofar?
Yay. Oh my gosh. So Sofar Sounds is a company that holds performances all around the world. And they're in different kinds of spaces. They could be in libraries and cafes, on roofs and outdoor spaces. And the Sofar that I think is typical to most people who do know this company is around 3 artists. They play for 15 to 20 minutes. And you are just asked to be respectful and courteous to the artists. Listen, stay for artists even if you don't know who they are. Share their content on socials if you've tagged them in anything. And it's just it's an artist stream. It's a great date night. It's just an awesome experience, really. And there's different iterations of it, but it's just a really fantastic company. And I actually started working for Sofar Sounds on March 30th. And I think we recorded our first episode on like April 3rd or something like that.
Yeah. It's like Jenn started a new job and then I was like, do you want to record a podcast with me?
Grr. It has been crazy. I started a new job, new podcast, and a new artist name all in like the same week.
Abundance. I think
I
that's what
am
you would say.
abundant in always, as you.
Always. Oh man. But that's great. So for this episode, we got to interview the founder of Sofar, who is your boss.
Yeah.
And tell me about what it was like when, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks after you start, you're like, hey, do you want to be on my podcast?
Right. I blame you, number one. Let's just get that out there. The pressure was on, but no, it was cool. I wanted to kind of contribute somebody from the music world into our guest list, and Rafe is super inspiring. So yeah, probably like 3 weeks in, I asked him to be a guest, and he so graciously said yes. And I think it was a great choice because he has a lot of insight and he's created this very unique thing. So I'm really glad that we got to chat with him.
Awesome. Hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Non-Traditional Podcast, Rafe. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm really excited about this.
What is the earliest memory you have of what you wanted to be when you grew up?
The earliest memory of what I wanted to be was a chef.
Oh, tell us about that.
Wow. Curveball.
Yeah, I just loved and still love, but at this time it was probably obsessive as a kid just to eat. And I always thought, where did this food come from? What mystery brought this thing to my plate?
Other than your mother.
Yeah, my mother. Well, eventually I realized it was my mother, or grandmother, or fill in the blank.
Yeah.
But there was something really special about it. And then when we went out to a restaurant, that was just next level. And that was where it was a little bit more magical. And I would be so into the food that I would eat really slowly because I just enjoyed taking it in. But I'd eat so slowly that everybody else, especially the adults, would be done and like on their dessert. And I'm still chowing on my main course. But I just savored it. And later in life, I realized that was actually probably a really good thing, really healthy. But at the time, it was just because I enjoyed it. And I wanted to be the person on the other side. I want to be the one creating that good stuff for somebody else.
Oh, nice. So, I mean, you're not a chef right now. I mean, you probably cook, right?
Head chef.
But what changed? Like, why? I mean, did you just think culinary school is not for me, or were you trying to do something practical? Why didn't you become a chef?
It's a great question. I don't know. Maybe I need to do that after this chat. Maybe it's reigniting some old fires. I think that I realized that it was quite a hard life and still is. And I'm somebody who likes my freedom, and even like physicality of going to an office and eventually going on business travel and meeting people in different spaces and different areas of a compound. But the chef is beautiful, but it's also very much claustrophobic. You're stuck in a kitchen. And I think they learned the realization that the hours and the limitation on where you could go was enough to make me rethink that.
Yeah.
So you didn't become a chef. What did you decide to do? Did you go to a 4-year college?
I played around in college, i.e., I just explored learning stuff. And so I was a double major, English literature and political science. And funny enough, those two things still mark me today, just in terms of what I'm into. I don't know about you
Mm-hmm.
or your friends, but I think what you study in college definitely stays with you, whether it's your career. But again, they weren't what I was going to do. They weren't that practical. Certainly not in my mind. What am I going to do with English literature, mainly English literature, like 200 years old? And I didn't want to go into politics, so I ended up going to grad school, and that was getting a master's in advertising and business, and that was very focused. And
Right.
that was the time I'm like, this could be more creative because it's basically marketing, but equally it's something specific.
Right, right. And we'll definitely come back to the college talk in a bit, because I definitely have feelings on that, on whether or not, especially in this day and age, for someone starting out, for example, if college necessarily is the thing. Because I had the exact same experience you did. I went to a 4-year college. I mean, it's so funny because it's a little bit of the opposite. I had more of a practical career choice in college because my parents were like, you need to get a job. So I'm a computer science engineer,
Great.
but I wanted to work in film and television. That's just what I always wanted to do. So yes, I went to college and I got a practical degree, and those same things are my interests now. Like I love tech and I love playing around with all of that stuff. But for what I do as a job, I'm lucky enough to work in film and television. Like that's what I love to do. So it's very interesting you said that, and we'll definitely come back to it. But so after grad school, where did you end up?
I was in Chicago and I moved to New York City. It was a bit spontaneous. It was
Best
without
city
a
in the
job.
world.
I feel like most trips to New York or most moves to New York are pretty spontaneous.
Well, Jen, this one was, yeah, completely. So much so that I had no job. I just showed up. But I felt that I just wanted to live in the city. For me, that was the city. As great as Chicago is, and it's probably my favorite city in many ways, it's not New York. And so I went there and I found a job. Actually, my first job was as an usher working for the 92nd Street Y. And it was literally still probably the best job ever because they paid me to sit in the back after I let everyone in and listen to music or interviews or whatever cultural thing they had on there. It was an amazing program. And that just got me smitten with New York. I said the bandwidth of things you could do. And then just to answer your question, then I ended up in advertising after that.
So we're going to jump ahead a little bit because you had different, stops along your career. You've done a lot of stuff, but most importantly, now you co-created the company called Sofar Sounds. How did you go from advertising marketing to that? What was that pivot for you?
The golden thread throughout whatever I did and learned was that you always, in marketing and in innovation, which I dabbled into, you start with what's bugging you. What is it that you can see that is annoying in some way? And then the other half of that is what can you do about it? And so I was taught that pretty early on in my career. There was sort of this inner voice that was always saying something to me about stuff in life, whether it's waiting in line at the grocery store or closer to so far, the very poor experience you can have at live events, or in business, whatever I was doing, I was always taught to sort of try to solve it. And so my hobby was music, listening to music. I'm not a musician, just listening. And I just took the skills that I had learned a little bit in business and thought, okay, how can I apply that yearning to figure out how we can make this a little bit better to something that I love?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I love about your trajectory is you are just like such a big dreamer. And I think one thing that I would love to kind of just figure out, if you're able to tell our listeners, is how do you create kind of like this limitless path, essentially? I think a lot of the problem with our thinking nowadays is we just don't dream big enough, right? So how do you stop yourself from saying, I can't do that? And how do you create this limitless path where you really just are you think, you imagine you can do anything and you kind of start there? Because I think one thing that happens is we don't have a big enough goal, and if you don't dream it, you can't do it.
That is such a good point and a really good question. I think that dreaming starts when you're really young. And I think we're all born as artists in some way, creative certainly, and as dreamers. And if you spend much time around kids, they're always saying stuff that blows you away because it's very optimistic usually, and it's really about like a what if, and why can't we reach for the stars, and why can't we fly to the moon tomorrow, and whatever those things are. And I think that quality really stuck with me, number one, throughout my whole life. And then I just sort of shelved that and then thought at the same time, what can I do that's practical to get there? So it was the combination of being a little bit childlike from time to time with literally writing down, which I do, what I want to do today, what I want to do this week, what I want to do this month, this year. So that combination of stepping stones, but also never losing sight of where you want to get in 5 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The deeper answer to that is also my mom died when I was really, really young. And I think somehow that wired in me the interest in just finding something to deal with that pain. And the reverse of that is often looking at the bright side. So, you see something quite dark and you seek the light.
Yeah.
And so that was something that sort of maybe redid my wiring when I was a teenager, and just thought, just spun me off in a way to get away from some of that difficulty.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And one thing that we ask all of our guests is there something along the way in that path that was devastating, or that you considered outwardly a failure, that you're thankful for now, that you wouldn't be in the place that you are now if something like that hadn't happened? Is there anything like that that's gone on?
Yeah, for sure. I think that getting laid off, which I was when I was in England. I worked for a company, a drinks company, a big one, and they just closed down the whole division.
Yeah.
And I was really fortunate that I already been thinking of doing something on my own. So I actually turned around and asked them if I could consult with them. They said yes. But the big thing was, when you lose a job, it really makes you soul search. And at first it's like a kick in the gut, even though it's not your fault. In this case, there were like a lot of other people in the same boat. And you still first you start to blame yourself, then you pick yourself up and you're like, no, it had nothing to do with me. It was the way business is. And it makes you to try stuff that you wouldn't have tried, either quickly or ever, because all of a sudden, you got all this freedom and you can go back to those dreams that you asked about. And so I think losing a job is really helpful for in many ways, as long as you have some sort of landing, financially. I don't want to belittle that part. That's tough, but it often pushes you to do new things. And with me, I probably wouldn't have started so far or really ran with it, the business Anastasia was asking about, without that extra push.
Yeah.
It always kind of, it's so funny because that's also a thread with a lot of our guests, where something like a firing is usually what gets you to where you need to go. Because at the moment, I've been there too, at the moment, it's the worst feeling in the world, and you're like, how did this happen? And a lot of times you look back on it and you think, that was the best thing that happened to me.
Yeah, you think about that job and you're like, what if I was still there? That would be terrible.
I want to go back to the college thing a little bit, because this is something that I've been thinking about a lot, and especially in our climate here in the States with college debt and the amount of money kids have to put into going to college, but also our time right now where technology allows us to do so much on our own. For example, what do you think, just do you think college is still important?
Sort of. I don't think it is at the same level as when I went to school because of what you said, and because it doesn't necessarily help give you a straight line to getting a career. It's sort of a pit stop to help you think. And I think that period, that oasis of 4 years, is very helpful in some ways in our lives, but it's not as practical, as pragmatic, especially not with that gargantuan cost as it used to be. So I say sort of because I think that means for some people, yes, and for some people, no, but it's not as obvious a value exchange as it used to be.
Right.
And I also think that someone will reinvent the way you go to college and find some sort of hybrid way of getting there. I have two kids. One of them is hopefully going to go to Northeastern. And the thing about that school is they have arguably a great internship program where they send the students for at least 3 semesters, if I have that right, to go and work. And it really prepares them in a much different way. So in a way that's a bit of a hybrid, more focused on the working world. And my other daughter is in college here in the UK, and not a week goes by where she doesn't question it and think, why am I doing this?
That's
Is it
good.
really worth it?
Yeah, because as someone who does not use my degree in any way to make money, for example, I would not give up that 4-year time, like you said, to think, because I also got to study abroad for 5 semesters. I would never give up that time for anything. So I do think there is an importance to it a little bit, in the sense of it does give you that time to think and to stop and prepare. But at the same time, I always wonder, at least in the States here, we don't really support trade schools, for example, as much as maybe the rest of the world does. And I always think sometimes maybe you don't have to go to a 4-year, college, go to a 2-year trade school, and, maybe that's the time you need to do that, and you don't have to be in, $100,000 of debt when you come out.
Totally. I think the societal pressure is very strong. And I wonder if the modern world has sort of caught up and exceeded that, and where the pressure that you need to tick that box and have it in conversation, or where'd you go to college? I wonder if that pressure around us is now a little outdated.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that experience also comes in waves, just like a lot of other life experiences. Even these jobs that the 3 of us are talking about being laid off from, we can find value there, right? We can pluck what we learned from that. Even if you wouldn't wish to be there today, you can say, I gained value. And that comes throughout your life. Like, oh, if I hadn't gone to that college, or if I hadn't had that job experience or that life experience or whatever it may be, or that trauma even, I wouldn't be where I am today, right? So I think that's something that I think about with college, where I'm like, half in my degree, half out of my degree. And it's kind of like you can seek the value there, right? And I think that's something that we all try and do.
Totally. The only thing I would add is that socially, college is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
It allows you to play. You meet so many people. Arguably, you may not meet that many people in your entire life in any other 4-year stretch. And you gain your independence. And many of us, certainly me, retain those friendships for life.
Absolutely.
And those memories. And when you think back upon your life, some of those experiences that you have are incredible. They're ingrained upon your life and who you are. So the working world may not have that. Now, Anastasia, your point, being abroad, and there are other ways, like things like that. There may be other ways of filling in that gap, but it is pretty powerful.
Agreed.
What advice would you have for someone who's just starting out or someone who's looking for a change? Because I think a lot of people, especially in the times we're in now, are reevaluating what they're doing and maybe are looking for a career change or, looking at the way they live differently. What advice would you have for someone who is in that spot right now?
Someone who's just starting out.
Starting out, yeah.
Yeah. It's such a well-trodden path, but I think that the power of networking, getting to know people and doing it in a non-transactional way over time is so useful, just as a life skill. So when I say non-transactional, it means the first time you don't show up saying, so, what do you have for me? Where's the job? Where's the this? Where's the that? I mean, basically building a network of people you like and people you respect, and that you can go to for help throughout your early, especially in your 20s, whenever you have something come your way that's a challenge, or whenever you might want to then start to really network because you kind of figured out what you want to do. Second, getting out of the box that you have to do what society or your parents say or think you do. And third, and maybe most importantly, that failure is probably a really good thing. Mm-hmm. And that could be, losing your job, but it also just means trying stuff. And if it doesn't work, whether it's your startup or working for a company that you don't like, or if you do a degree studying something and you don't love it and you don't use it later, most failure is actually just, a really good lesson to figure something else out. And then once you really start taking risks in your life, it's so good to feel that you have tried it, that you don't have a regret, and just going into it, what do I have to lose? And I think that sometimes society can handcuff us and make us less keen to try new things. And that's certainly been with me. And Jenn, to your earlier question about dreaming, you can't dream and not fail, because going for a dream is, takes a lot of mistake. There is a lot of failure to get to where you want to get to, and it's really about adapting.
Absolutely. What's something about you that would surprise people?
I'm a pretty open book, I have to say, and maybe that's what surprises people. I've learned that it's much better to be who you are and not hide too much. And I think that this whole situation with the virus has opened us up to see a bit more about how we live. Mm-hmm. So you can see into one of the areas of my house. I can do for the two of you.
My bedroom.
Yeah, there's your bedroom. Now I know people are starting to add those backgrounds.
Yeah.
I don't want to look at the Golden Gate Bridge again.
No.
not the Aurora Borealis anymore.
So I love that this time has given us a peek into who you are. And like if a kid comes flying in or a dog, that's great. So in a sort of a reverse way, I think maybe I try not to have as many surprises, and I try to be a little bit more who I am. And so that if I say to you, oh yeah, I run a book club, which I do, or oh yeah, I have 2 kids, which I obviously do. I mentioned it earlier, or fill in the blank, that it won't be such a surprise because it's consistent with who I am.
Yeah, I think something that I value about you is your transparency. I think it's a part of your success. So I definitely would agree with that. One thing we ask all of our guests as well is something that's really important to me, because we are interviewing people that we find a lot of value in their life and their career and what they have to say. And I'd love to know what abundance means to you.
Abundance means having a lot of great friends in your life. And I would say that includes family, because most people talk about their friends being like family as a compliment. I think of it the reverse. I think if you say that your family members are like friends, that's actually a much bigger deal.
Oh, I haven't heard that before.
So you choose your friends, and they're the ones that you really want to spend time with. So an abundance of people who in the deepest way really feel like a friend, that's abundance. And a friend I think we all know what that is, but for me, it's someone you're just yourself with, and you can have a deep conversation, and you don't feel like you have to hold back, and you're there for them, and they're there for you. And clearly, your wife, your husband, your partner, your lover, whatever, they can be your friends too. But that's abundance. If I can point to having some true friends from my life who I can call on, that's super cool.
Love that.
That's awesome. You gonna be a chef soon?
I'm gonna make lunch. Yes, it is after 1, and I am very hungry.
Love it.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Ray, for coming on the show. This was really awesome. Really great conversation. You could take a lot of things out of. So yeah, thank you.
My pleasure.
That was great.
What a way to go out.
I mean, that was a very introspective episode. I want to, first of all, clarify my thoughts on universities and colleges, four-year traditional universities, and say that I completely understand medical school, law school. They're just some jobs that people have that you have to go to school and learn how to be a civil engineer, for example. We don't want the bridge to break. You have to learn to do that. But I think there's also another side of the coin where, in the climate that we are now, what Rafe was saying was so present to what's going on in our world right now. For example, just this past week, Harvard announced that for the academic year 2020-2021, it was going to be remote and the tuition was going to remain the same. Harvard tuition is very close to $50,000 a year.
To which I say, Harvard, sweetie, have a seat.
You know what I mean? So it's so
what?
$50,000 a year. That is
a couple of chairs here for Harvard because that's ridiculous.
That's a down payment for a house in New York, let alone other places in the country. But I think it's a conversation to start having as to what is the true importance of going to a four-year college if it's just going to put you in debt right from the jump. Especially in a world where we are now living in a state where most of our stuff is going to have to be done remotely for the foreseeable future until there's a vaccine. Who even knows if a vaccine is going to change, the way we live our lives these days, because so many things are changing and moving around and stuff. So, I definitely think it's food for thought.
Girl, also stop dragging me in my college debt. Okay, leave me alone. I feel seen and not in a good way. Help me, Sally Mae.
I'm laughing, but I'm actually crying is what's happening right now.
Me too.
But, I think there needs to be a conversation about what the future of higher education is. I feel like we should talk more about 2-year trade schools like they do in Europe, where that's just a normal thing to do. And, not to give away any things, but there are definitely a few guests in season 2 that I would love to talk about things like this. That will be coming soon. But in general, that was just a really great talk with Rafe. Like, it got me thinking a lot, especially based on all the news that's been happening today. And, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I loved how we talked about taking risks. It's just something that is so important to remember. We do need to face our fears in that way in a little bit and take the leap of faith, because the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. I loved his perspective on risk, because it's just something that I think we kind of get comfortable in our own little ways. I see you in your apartment with your little plants and you're comfortable, but here we are out on a limb, on this non-traditional limb. I think that this has been a big risk for us this year, and Rafe was a great reminder to keep going.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he kind of spoke about something that has been a thread through this whole season, which is failure, and how failure, a lot of times it sucks, but can lead you to your success, can lead you to think about things in a different way that you never thought about before. And if you don't fail, you'll never get there. And it's maybe something we shouldn't be so terrified of. And so like, I can't fail, because that statement of I can't fail it sometimes stifles you because you don't want to take risk. You don't want to, do anything crazy because, oh no, you might fail, not realizing that might lead you to your next big goal, big breakthrough.
You better preach, Anastasia. And that's clap emojis the whole way through, okay?
How do I put that in the podcast, though?
I'm sure you can. Can you put emojis in podcast notes? Oh, that would be a game changer.
Game changer. And yes, you can.
Oh, okay. Well, that was such a great episode, and what a really great way to end the season. I'm really excited for what's coming in season 2. I know you have some things planned, so why don't you let the folks know?
Well, we do have some things planned for season 2, but before season 2 happens, we're going to take a little break because we need a rest. We've been podcasting in a pandemic. But just for you, we, just like I said in the beginning, we are going to take a week off, and we are coming back with what I'm calling the newsletter episode. It's basically your opportunity as our audience listeners to speak. Is there a question that we didn't ask that you really wanted to ask one of our guests? Is there a question you want to ask the non-traditional team, Jenn and I, that you've just been wondering, like, how did you guys do this? Or how did you do that? Write us. Send us an email at nontraditionalcast@gmail.com, or you can send us a little audio message, send us a voice memo, or if you have an Android phone, however you can record audio, send us a little short message. We will play you on the podcast and get you answers to all your questions.
Ooh, that's exciting. You want to hear your voice, y'all? Voice memo is really the way to go. A lot of my favorite podcasts have started doing that, and the audio quality is so much better. I say that as my audio quality is probably like trash right now. Reading myself. But yeah, I think that's the way to go if you guys want to ask us any questions. Charlotte, that one's for you, girl. We want to hear your questions.
Charlotte, cool. That could just be, we should call that episode Charlotte.
We should have a segment that's Charlotte. What's Charlotte's question this week? Girl, I love you. So what do you got going on this week?
This week is a lot of prep. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take a little bit of a break, but I have some prep that I'm doing for some seminars I'm going to be holding in the coming weeks, prepping.
Come on, boss lady.
Always working, always doing something. But then it's also just going to be a lot of prep for season 2, These podcasts don't make themselves, girl.
Yes, we are prepping. We're getting our guest list ready. We're getting some things ready to go out. So I'm super pumped. On top of that, I have some visuals hopefully coming out for Esabalu. Ooh. For a new single. Get ready, buckle up. And I'm working on a really, really cool project with Equally Speaking. Go follow them at Equally Speaking on Instagram. They're doing some great work for the Black Lives Matter movement, specifically pertaining to allies. And I have a song releasing with them soon. So look out for that. I'll put it on my main page, and they'll have it on their page as well. So I'm really, really excited about that as a passion project of mine. It's a project with a bunch of Black creatives that I really admire. So I'm really excited to be working with them, and I'll keep you guys posted on that. And we'll obviously keep you guys posted on all things season 2, and we'll have some treats sprinkled in throughout until the next season.
Yeah, definitely. So we won't go completely radio silent. We will still pop in here and there for some little tidbits, We want to keep you hungry.
Yeah, keep the alerts on, y'all, okay? Stay subscribed.
Stay subscribed. And also,
I'm dead.
If you haven't rated us already, please rate us on Apple Podcasts. It really helps us and all the stuff that we're doing over here. And I hope you enjoy the episode. See you in a couple of weeks. Non-Traditional is produced and edited by me, Anastasia.
And our theme song is Wildfire by Esabalu, and you can find it wherever you purchase music.
You can find us on Instagram at that's NONE_traditional, and Twitter at traditionalpod.
Subscribe to our newsletter on our website and keep up to date on all things non-traditional.